You know that feeling when you close your eyes at night and remember all the things you promised yourself you would do today but didn't? That quiet disappointment that settles in your chest when you realize you spent another day waiting for the perfect moment, the perfect mood, the perfect surge of inspiration that never came. You tell yourself tomorrow will be different, but deep down you know you're lying to yourself again. I have spent decades studying the minds of those who achieve greatness, and I can tell you this with absolute certainty. Every single person who has ever built something meaningful has felt exactly what you're feeling right now. The difference is, they stopped waiting for permission from their emotions to take action. They discovered what you're about to discover today. You have been sold a lie. You have been told that motivation is the fuel of success, that you need to feel inspired to move forward, that you should wait until you're ready. This is the greatest deception of our time. Motivation is nothing more than a fleeting visitor that comes and goes as it pleases. Building your life on motivation is like building your house on quicksand. What I'm about to share with you will fundamentally change how you see yourself and your relationship with action. This isn't about pumping yourself up with temporary excitement. This is about awakening the part of you that already knows what needs to be done and has been waiting for you to stop making excuses. Today, you will learn to respect yourself enough to keep the promises you make to yourself, even when every fiber of your being wants to retreat into comfort. You will discover that discipline is not punishment, but the highest form of self-love. You will understand that the person you want to become is not waiting for you to feel better, they are waiting for you to act better. The transformation begins the moment you realize that your feelings are not facts and your moods are not your master. The version of yourself that you admire, that you dream about becoming, that person lives on the other side of consistent action taken without emotional permission. If you're ready to stop negotiating with yourself and start building the unshakable foundation of true success, then this message has found you at exactly the right moment. Subscribe now, because what we're about to explore together will challenge everything you thought you knew about achievement, and by the end of this journey, you won't recognize the person you used to be. Number 1, the big lie of motivation. How many mornings have you awakened with grand plans only to find yourself hours later scrolling through your phone, telling yourself you'll start tomorrow when you feel more motivated? How many dreams have you postponed? How many goals have you abandoned? All because you were waiting for that magical moment when inspiration would strike like lightning and carry you forward. You are not alone in this struggle, but you have been deceived by one of the most dangerous lies ever told about success. The lie is this: that motivation is the fuel of achievement, that you must feel inspired to take action, that without the burning desire, without the emotional high, without the perfect alignment of stars and feelings, you cannot and should not move forward. This belief has destroyed more potential than any external obstacle ever could. Motivation is nothing more than a fair weather friend. It visits you when the sun is shining, when everything is going well, when you feel strong and confident. But where is motivation when the storm hits? Where is it when you're tired, when you're scared, when you failed for the 10th time? It abandons you precisely when you need it most. Building your life on motivation is like building your house on shifting sand. I once knew a man who waited 20 years for motivation to write the book that lived in his heart. He had the knowledge, he had the story, he had everything except the willingness to sit down and write when he didn't feel like it. 20 years later, he still had the same dream and the same excuse. He died with his book unwritten, not because he lacked talent or opportunity, but because he believed the lie that action requires emotional permission. The truth that will set you free is this: action creates motivation, not the other way around. Every great achievement in history began with someone doing what needed to be done despite not feeling like it. The successful person is not the one who always feels motivated, but the one who acts without waiting for motivation's approval. Think of motivation as a spoiled child who throws tantrums when it doesn't get its way. You would never allow a child to dictate when you go to work, when you pay your bills, or when you fulfill your responsibilities. Yet you allow the emotional child within you to control your entire destiny. You wait for its permission, you negotiate with its demands, you excuse its rebellion. The moment you understand that you can act without feeling like it, you become dangerous to mediocrity. You become a threat to the ordinary life. You discover that the power was always within you, that you never needed motivation's blessing to begin. You needed only the courage to move without it. This is not about forcing yourself into misery or ignoring your emotions entirely. This is about recognizing that your feelings are simply information, not instructions. They tell you about your current state, but they should never determine your next action. The person you want to become is waiting on the other side of action taken without emotional approval. Number 2, shame as a moral force. There is a feeling that visits you in the quiet moments when the noise of the world fades and you are alone with the truth of who you are versus who you promised yourself you would become. It sits heavy in your chest when you remember the commitments you made to yourself that you broke, the standards you set that you abandoned, the person you said you would be that you failed to become. This feeling has a name, and it is shame. But here is what they never taught you about shame. It is not your enemy. It is your moral compass pointing you toward who you truly are meant to be. Shame is the gap between your actions and your values made visible. It is your soul's way of telling you that you are living beneath your potential, that you are betraying the highest version of yourself. Modern culture has convinced you that shame is toxic, that it should be avoided at all costs, that feeling bad about your choices is somehow harmful to your well-being. This is a lie that keeps you trapped in mediocrity. Shame is not the problem. The problem is the behavior that creates the shame. Instead of numbing the feeling, you must honor what it's trying to teach you. Picture 2 men standing before a mirror. One sees his reflection and feels shame for the promises he has broken to himself. He turns away, makes excuses, blames circumstances, and continues living the same way. The other feels the same shame but uses it as fuel. He looks deeper into that mirror and says, "This ends now. I will no longer be a person who lies to himself." The first man stays trapped. The second man transforms. Shame in the face of your own mediocrity is not weakness. It is strength awakening. It is your integrity demanding that you rise to meet it. When you feel ashamed of staying in bed when you promised yourself you would exercise, that shame is not punishing you. It is calling you back to who you said you would be. The most successful people in history were not those who never felt shame. They were those who felt it deeply and used it as rocket fuel for transformation. They understood that shame is the price of self-awareness, and self-awareness is the beginning of self-mastery. Every time you break a promise to yourself, you weaken the foundation of your own identity. Every time you do what you said you would do, especially when you don't feel like it, you strengthen that foundation. This is not about perfection. This is about building a relationship with yourself based on trust rather than betrayal. The next time shame visits you, do not run from it. Sit with it. Listen to what it is telling you. Ask yourself, what standard am I failing to meet? What promise am I breaking? What version of myself am I betraying? Then use that discomfort as the spark that ignites change. Let shame become the bridge between who you are and who you are meant to be. Number 3, a culture that glorifies mediocrity. Look around you, and you will see a world that has fallen in love with its own limitations. A culture that celebrates laziness by calling it self-care, that glorifies avoidance by calling it mindfulness, that transforms excuses into wisdom and stagnation into virtue. You live in a time when doing less is praised, more than doing more, when comfort is valued above growth, when the very pursuit of excellence is viewed with suspicion. Listen to the language of our time. Don't push yourself too hard. Take it easy. You don't have to prove anything to anyone. Just be yourself. These phrases sound kind. They feel gentle. But they are poison disguised as medicine. They are the lullabies that sing potential to sleep. This culture has created a new form of moral superiority around mediocrity. People wear their limitations like badges of honor. They boast about their inability to wake up early, their resistance to hard work, their commitment to balance that looks suspiciously like avoidance. They have turned weakness into identity and called it authenticity. Think of a river that has been dammed. The water that should be flowing powerfully toward the ocean instead becomes stagnant, breeding disease and decay. This is what happens to human potential when it is blocked by a culture that fears the discomfort of growth. The natural flow of ambition, the healthy desire to become more than you are, is dammed up by messages that tell you to stay where you are. I have watched generations surrender their dreams to this comfortable philosophy. They start with fire in their eyes and great plans in their hearts, but slowly the culture whispers them into mediocrity. Why work so hard, it asks. Why not just enjoy life? And one by one, they lay down their weapons in the fight for a better life and settle into the warm embrace of ordinary. But here is what they don't tell you about this path of least resistance. It leads to a life of quiet desperation. It leads to that moment, years from now, when you will look back and realize that you traded your potential for comfort, your dreams for ease, your growth for the approval of people who were too afraid to grow themselves. The most dangerous part of this cultural lie is that it makes stagnation feel virtuous. It convinces you that ambition is selfish, that pushing yourself is unhealthy, that wanting more makes you ungrateful. It wraps mediocrity in the language of wisdom and sells you limitation as liberation. But deep in your soul, you know better. You know that you were not born to live a small life. You know that comfort is not the highest value. You know that there is something in you that demands expression, that requires you to become more than you are. The culture may have taught you to silence that voice, but it still speaks to you in the quiet moments. The way forward requires rebellion against this comfortable lie. It requires you to value growth over comfort, progress over peace, becoming over being. It requires you to stop listening to a culture that profits from your smallness and start listening to the part of you that knows you were meant for something greater. Number 4. Action comes before emotion. You have been taught to believe that feelings come first, that you must wait for the right emotional state before you can take action. This is the great reversal that has crippled an entire generation. You have been conditioned to think that emotion is the master and action is the servant, when the truth is exactly the opposite. How many times have you said, "I'll start when I feel better," or "I'll do it when I'm motivated," or "I need to be in the right headspace first"? Each time you speak these words, you hand over control of your destiny to the most unreliable force in your life, your fluctuating emotional state. You make your progress dependent on something as changeable as the weather. Your emotions are not facts. They are not reliable guides. They are temporary visitors that come and go based on countless factors beyond your control. What you ate, how you slept, what news you consumed, what memory surfaced, what fear whispered in your ear. To wait for the perfect emotional alignment before taking action is to wait forever. Imagine a surgeon who refused to operate until he felt excited about it, a firefighter who wouldn't enter a burning building until she felt courageous, a parent who wouldn't care for their child until they felt patient. The absurdity is obvious when we apply this logic to others, yet you apply it to your own life every single day. The strongest people who ever lived understood this principle. Action shapes emotion, not the other way around. When you act despite not feeling like it, something powerful happens. The act itself begins to generate the very feeling you were waiting for. Movement creates momentum. Momentum creates motivation. Motivation sustains movement. But it must begin with action taken without emotional permission. Consider the athlete who doesn't feel like training but shows up anyway. Within minutes of beginning, the reluctance fades and is replaced by energy. Think of the writer who sits down to write despite feeling uninspired, only to find that the words begin to flow once the pen touches paper. This is the alchemy of action. It transforms the lead of reluctance into the gold of engagement. You have been living backwards, waiting for emotion to give you permission to act. But the successful person has learned to flip this equation. They act first, and the feelings follow. They don't wait to feel brave. They act bravely and discover courage in the doing. They don't wait to feel strong. They do strong things and find strength in the action. This principle applies to every area of your life. You don't need to feel loving to act with love. You don't need to feel confident to take confident action. You don't need to feel disciplined to behave with discipline. The feeling is not the prerequisite for the action. The action is the creator of the feeling. The transformation begins the moment you stop negotiating with your emotions and start commanding them through your actions. When you move your body despite feeling tired, exercise your mind despite feeling unfocused, pursue your goals despite feeling doubtful, you discover that you are not the prisoner of your emotional state. You are its architect. Number 5. Discipline is a form of self. Respect. There is a sacred relationship that exists within you, a relationship more important than any other you will ever have. It is the relationship between who you are today and who you promise yourself you will become tomorrow. Every choice you make either strengthens this relationship or weakens it. Every commitment you keep builds trust with yourself. Every promise you break erodes the foundation of your own identity. Discipline is not punishment. It is not restriction. It is not the enemy of freedom. Discipline is the highest form of self-love, the deepest expression of respect for the person you are becoming. When you do what you said you would do, especially when no one is watching, especially when you don't feel like it, you are making a sacred deposit into the account of your own self-worth. Think about how you feel when someone constantly breaks their promises to you. Think about how your trust in them erodes, how you begin to doubt their word, how you start to expect disappointment. Now realize that this is exactly what happens when you constantly break promises to yourself. You begin to doubt your own word. You expect yourself to fail. You lose faith in your ability to follow through. Every morning you wake up and make silent promises to yourself. You promise to exercise, to eat well, to work on your goals, to be patient with your family, to avoid the habits that hold you back. These promises matter more than any contract you will ever sign, because they determine the very structure of your character. When you keep these promises, magic happens. You begin to trust yourself in ways you never thought possible. You develop an unshakable confidence that comes not from external validation, but from internal integrity. You become someone you can count on, someone you respect, someone you believe in. I have observed that people fall into two categories: those who trust themselves and those who don't. Those who trust themselves take bigger risks because they know they can count on themselves to follow through. They make bolder commitments because they have a track record of keeping their word. They face challenges with confidence because they know they won't abandon themselves when things get difficult. Those who don't trust themselves live smaller lives. They make fewer commitments because they expect themselves to fail. They avoid challenges because they doubt their ability to persist. They remain trapped in patterns they hate because they don't believe they have the strength to change. The path to self-trust is paved with small acts of discipline. It's waking up when you said you would wake up. It's doing the workout you promised yourself. It's having the difficult conversation you've been avoiding. It's keeping your word to yourself in the smallest moments, because integrity is built in the details. Discipline is not about perfection. It's about showing up consistently for yourself. It's about treating your commitments to yourself with the same seriousness you would treat commitments to someone you deeply respect. It's about understanding that every small act of follow-through is actually a profound act of self-love. The moment you begin to see discipline as self-respect rather than self-punishment, everything changes. You stop seeing it as something you have to do and start seeing it as something you get to do. You stop viewing it as a burden and start experiencing it as a gift you give to your future self. Number 6, self-sabotage in disguise. You have become a master of disguising fear as wisdom, procrastination as patience, and avoidance as intelligence. You tell yourself you're being strategic when you're actually being scared. You convince yourself you're being thoughtful when you're actually being paralyzed. You have learned to make cowardice sound like enlightenment. I'm waiting for the right time, you say, as if there will ever be a perfect moment when all the stars align and success becomes guaranteed. I need to think about it more, you declare, as if thinking alone has ever built a business, written a book, or changed a life. I want to make sure I'm ready, you explain, while readiness slips further away with each passing day of inaction. This is the most insidious form of self-sabotage because it feels so reasonable, it sounds so mature, it appears so wise. You have convinced yourself that you're being responsible by avoiding risk, that you're being smart by waiting for certainty, that you're being prudent by demanding guarantees before you begin. But behind this mask of rationality lies a simple truth. You are afraid. Afraid of failure, afraid of success, afraid of what others will think, afraid of discovering that you're not as capable as you hoped. And rather than acknowledge this fear and act despite it, you have dressed it up in the clothing of wisdom and called it good judgment. Picture a person standing at the edge of a diving board. explaining to everyone below why this isn't the right time to jump. The water might be too cold, the angle isn't quite right. They should probably practice more first. Meanwhile, others are diving in, swimming, and enjoying the water. The person on the diving board isn't being wise, they're being afraid. What you call emotional intelligence is often emotional cowardice. What you call taking your time is often wasting your time. What you call being careful is often being scared. The mind is a brilliant attorney that can build a compelling case for inaction, and you have allowed it to argue you out of the life you really want. The most dangerous part of this self-deception is that it can last forever. You can spend your entire life waiting for the right time, gathering more information, getting more prepared, feeling more ready. Meanwhile, life passes by, opportunities disappear, and your dreams grow dimmer with each day of sophisticated procrastination. Here is what fear doesn't want you to know. The right time is always now. The perfect plan doesn't exist. Complete readiness is a myth. You will never have all the information you think you need. You will never feel as prepared as you want to feel. Waiting for these things is waiting for something that will never come. The successful person has learned to act with incomplete information, to begin without perfect preparation, to move forward despite uncertainty. They understand that clarity comes through action, not contemplation. They know that confidence is built through experience, not planning. The way out of this trap is to recognize it for what it is: sophisticated fear. Stop calling your hesitation wisdom. Stop calling your procrastination patience. Stop calling your avoidance strategy. Call it what it is, feel the fear fully, and then act anyway. The person you want to become is waiting on the other side of the action you're afraid to take. Number 7, the environment that encourages mediocrity. You are surrounded by people who have made peace with their limitations and now want you to make peace with yours. They speak in gentle voices about being realistic, about not setting yourself up for disappointment, about being grateful for what you have. They wear their acceptance of mediocrity like a badge of wisdom, and they want to pin the same badge on you. Look closely at the people in your life who discourage your ambition. Listen to their language. Don't get your hopes up too high. Not everyone can be successful. You should be happy with what you have. Money isn't everything. You're being too hard on yourself. These words sound caring, but they are poison disguised as protection. These people are not trying to help you. They are trying to keep you at their level because your growth makes them uncomfortable with their stagnation. Your ambition reminds them of their abandoned dreams. Your discipline exposes their lack thereof. Your progress threatens the story they've told themselves about why they settled for less. The most dangerous environment is not the one that openly attacks your dreams, but the one that slowly, kindly, gently talks you out of them. It's the friend who always has a reason why your idea won't work. It's the family member who reminds you of every time you failed before. It's the colleague who questions why you need to work so hard when everyone else seems content with doing the minimum. This environment operates like a powerful gravity that pulls you back toward the average. Every time you try to rise above the common level, you feel the weight of their expectations, their doubts, their fears. They don't want you to fail, but they don't want you to succeed too much either, because that would make them face the uncomfortable truth about their own choices. I have watched brilliant people dim their light to fit into environments that couldn't handle their brightness. I have seen ambitious souls lower their standards to match the people around them. I have witnessed dreamers abandon their visions because the environment made those dreams feel impossible, unrealistic, or selfish. But here is what you must understand. The environment that accepts mediocrity will never produce excellence. The people who have settled for less will never encourage you to demand more. The crowd that has stopped growing will always try to convince you to stop growing too. You cannot soar with eagles while surrounded by turkeys. You cannot build an extraordinary life while immersed in ordinary thinking. You cannot become exceptional while marinating in mediocrity. The environment doesn't just influence you. It programs you, shapes you, defines what seems possible and what seems impossible. The solution is not to change the people around you, but to change the people around you. Seek out those who are growing, achieving, pushing boundaries. Surround yourself with people who make you feel lazy in comparison, who challenge you to raise your standards, who celebrate your ambitions instead of questioning them. Distance yourself from the voices that whisper limitations and draw closer to the voices that roar possibilities. Stop seeking approval from people who have given up on themselves. Stop asking for permission from those who lack the courage to pursue their own dreams. Your environment is a choice, and that choice will determine your destiny. Choose wisely, choose courageously, and choose people who believe in becoming more than they are. Number 8, turning shame into fuel. There is a fire burning in your chest, a fire you have been taught to extinguish, to deny, to run from. It's the fire of shame, and instead of destroying it, you must learn to harness it. Instead of letting it burn you down, you must use it to forge yourself into something stronger, something better, something worthy of your deepest aspirations. Shame is the most powerful force for transformation that exists within you, but only if you have the courage to face it directly. Most people spend their entire lives running from shame, numbing it, denying it, making excuses for it. They treat it like a disease to be cured rather than an energy to be channeled. But shame is not your enemy. Shame is your awakening. It is the gap between who you are and who you could be made visible. It is your soul's way of saying, you are capable of more than this. You are meant for something greater than what you're accepting. Think of shame as a sacred fire. A fire can destroy, but it can also purify. It can burn down, but it can also forge. The same fire that consumes wood can turn iron into steel. The choice is not whether you will feel shame. The choice is what you will do with the fire when it comes. I knew a man who carried the shame of 20 years of broken promises to himself. Every morning he looked in the mirror and saw someone he didn't respect, someone who had given up on his dreams, someone who had settled for a life far below his potential. He had two choices. Let that shame destroy him, or let it forge him. He chose to use it as fuel. Every time the shame arose, instead of pushing it away, he leaned into it. He let it remind him of who he had been, so he could become clear about who he would be. He used the pain of his past mediocrity to power his future excellence. That shame became the engine of his transformation. The process begins with radical honesty. You must look at yourself without filters, without excuses, without the comfortable lies you tell yourself. You must see clearly the gap between your potential and your reality, between your dreams and your actions, between who you said you would be and who you've actually become. This will hurt, this will burn, this will feel like you're being turned inside out. Good. That burning is not destruction, it's purification. You are not falling apart, you are being rebuilt. The pain you feel is not evidence that something is wrong, it's evidence that something is finally being made right. Now comes the crucial part. You must transform that shame into commitment. Let it fuel your discipline. Let it power your persistence. Let it drive your determination. Every time you feel that fire in your chest, let it remind you why you cannot afford to stay where you are, why you cannot accept anything less than your highest potential. Use shame as your North Star. Let it guide you toward the actions that will close the gap between who you are and who you're meant to be. When you feel ashamed of your laziness, let it drive you to action. When you feel ashamed of your mediocrity, let it push you toward excellence. When you feel ashamed of your broken promises, let it strengthen your resolve to keep new ones. The strongest people who ever lived were not those who never felt shame. They were those who felt it most deeply and used it most powerfully. They understood that shame is not weakness revealing itself, it's strength demanding to be born. Number 9, purpose over emotion. There are two types of people in this world, those who live by their feelings and those who live by their purpose. Those who live by feelings are at the mercy of every emotional tide, every mood shift, every temporary state that washes over them. They are powerful when they feel powerful, motivated when they feel motivated, disciplined when they feel disciplined. But they are also weak when they feel weak, lazy when they feel lazy, defeated when they feel defeated. Those who live by purpose have discovered something far more reliable than emotion. They have found a mission larger than their momentary feelings, a vision more compelling than their current mood, a commitment deeper than their temporary desires. They act not based on how they feel, but based on who they have committed to become. Purpose is the North Star that guides you when all other lights have gone out. It is the unshakable foundation that holds steady when the storms of emotion rage around you. It is the silent voice that speaks louder than fear, stronger than doubt, more persistent than resistance. When you have true purpose, your feelings become information rather than instruction. Think of a parent in the middle of the night awakened by a crying child. They don't consult their emotions. They don't check whether they feel like getting up. They rise because their purpose as a parent supersedes their desire for comfort. They act from identity, not impulse. This is the power of purpose over emotion. But purpose is not something that happens to you. It is something you choose, something you craft, something you commit to with the full force of your being. It requires you to decide who you are going to be. Regardless of how you feel, what you are going to stand for, regardless of what stands against you, what you are going to create, regardless of what tries to stop you. The person living by purpose has already made the big decisions. They have already chosen their identity, their values, their direction. When faced with a choice between comfort and growth, between easy and right, between temporary pleasure and lasting fulfillment, they don't need to deliberate. Their purpose has already decided for them. I have watched people transform overnight not because their feelings changed, but because their purpose crystallized. One day they were drifting, following their emotions wherever they led, making decisions based on momentary desires. The next day they had found their North Star, and suddenly every choice became clear, every action became intentional, every day became directed towards something greater than themselves. This is not about suppressing your emotions or pretending they don't matter. This is about understanding their proper place in the hierarchy of decision-making. Your emotions are valuable messengers, but they are terrible masters. They can inform your purpose, but they should never override it. The practical application of this principle is revolutionary. When you don't feel like exercising, you exercise anyway because your purpose demands physical vitality. When you don't feel like working on your goals, you work anyway because your purpose requires progress. When you don't feel like having difficult conversations, you have them anyway because your purpose values truth over comfort. Living by purpose means your future self, your highest aspirations, your deepest values get to vote on today's actions, not just your current emotions. It means you have appointed something larger and more lasting than your feelings to be the CEO of your life. Find your purpose, name it, claim it. Let it become the lens through which you see every choice, the standard by which you measure every action, the force that moves you forward when nothing else can. When your purpose is clear, your path becomes clear, regardless of how you feel about walking it. Number 10, the urgency to act now. Time is the one resource you can never recover, the one investment you can never reclaim, the one opportunity that once lost is gone forever. And yet you treat it as if it were infinite, as if you had unlimited chances to become who you're meant to be, as if tomorrow were guaranteed and next year were promised. How many tomorrows have you spent? How many next weeks have you wasted? How many some days have you squandered while waiting for the perfect moment that never comes? Every day you postpone action is a day stolen from your future self, a day subtracted from your potential, a day that could have been the beginning of everything, but instead became another page in the story of what might have been. The most dangerous lie you tell yourself is that you have time. Time to figure things out, time to get ready, time to feel better, time to overcome your fears, time to find motivation. But time is not standing still while you gather courage. Life is not pausing while you prepare. Opportunities are not waiting while you decide. Right now, while you hesitate, someone else is beginning. While you plan, someone else is doing. While you wait for the perfect moment, someone else is creating progress with imperfect action. While you postpone your dreams, someone else is living theirs. The world does not slow down for your indecision. Think of all the people who had the same dreams you have, the same goals you've set, the same potential you possess. What separated those who achieved from those who only aspired? It was not talent, it was not luck, it was not circumstances, it was the willingness to begin before they felt ready, to act before they felt certain, to move before they felt motivated. There is no perfect time because perfect times don't exist. There is no ideal moment because ideal moments are illusions. There is no complete readiness because readiness is built through action, not preparation. You will never feel completely ready, totally prepared, or perfectly motivated. These feelings are not prerequisites for action. They are products of action. The clock is ticking, not just on your dreams, but on your life. Every second you spend waiting is a second you will never get back. Every hour you delay is an hour closer to the end of your story. Every day you postpone is a day that could have been the turning point but wasn't. But here is the miracle. This very moment can be the moment everything changes. This very second can be the beginning of the life you've always wanted. This very breath can be the first breath of the new you. You don't need to wait for Monday, for the new year, for better circumstances, for more confidence. You need only to begin. Start now. Not tomorrow, not next week, not when you feel ready. Now, take one small action toward the person you want to become. Make one phone call you've been avoiding. Write one page of the book that lives in your heart. Do one thing that brings you closer to your dreams. The size of the action doesn't matter. What matters is that you act. The person you admire, the life you want, the dreams you carry, they are all waiting for you to stop waiting. They are all on the other side of action taken right now, in this moment, without permission, without perfect conditions, without guarantees. Your time is now. Your moment is here. Your opportunity is calling. Will you answer, or will you let it ring forever while you wait for a better time to pick up the phone? The choice is yours, but the time is now. And so you stand at this moment, not at the end of something, but at the threshold of everything that has been waiting for you to claim it. You have seen through the great deception. You understand now that the person you have been seeking, the life you have been dreaming of, the success you have been chasing, none of it requires permission from your emotions. Picture a river that has been flowing for thousands of years, carving its path through stone, not through force, but through persistence. It does not wait for the perfect conditions. It does not ask the rock for permission. It simply flows, day after day, moment after moment, reshaping the landscape by the simple act of moving forward regardless of what stands in its way. You are that river now, armed with this understanding. You possess something more valuable than motivation, more reliable than inspiration, more powerful than any temporary feeling. You possess the knowledge that action is your birthright, that discipline is your ally, that respect for yourself is the foundation upon which everything meaningful is built. Every morning from this day forward, you will have a choice. You can return to the old way of waiting, negotiating, hoping for the right feeling to arrive. Or you can step into the truth that has been revealed to you here, the truth that your future self has been whispering all along. You already have everything you need. The path stretches out before you, and it is not a path that ends. It is a path that deepens, that reveals more of itself with each step taken without emotional permission. If you feel called to walk this path alongside others who understand what you now understand, then join us, because this conversation between who you are and who you are becoming never truly ends. The river flows whether you watch it or not. The question is not whether you are ready to begin. The question is whether you are ready to continue.